Craybill. Craybill.
Your mumbling is a stick in your mouth. I can't hear you. You're working on it.
She's like, start doing signs. For scholarship, the speaker's
Oh, yes, this was supposed to get us.
Okay, we're going to start up with our agenda meeting. Thank you all for being here today. I do want to remind everyone, or thank everyone for all those that served for Memorial Day yesterday, for everyone that has lost someone, or those that have just served. We just want to take a moment to think about those wonderful people that served and gave their lives and gave their time for us. So let's just have a moment to think about that. Thank you. As we go forth, I also would like to mention we're right in the middle of graduation. We have had some wonderful graduations to this point. We congratulate all the graduates. We will have some more graduations coming up soon, so very excited to be part of that. One of the best parts of our job is to see these young people go through school successfully and then graduate. So just really want to wish them all the very, very best in their futures. And at this point, I'm going to turn around and ask Ms. Bowie if she will call the roll.
Good afternoon. Pete Wildebohr,
Present?
Melissa Mason,
Here.
Josie Barnhart,
Here.
Pat Bradford,
I am here.
Stephanie Craybill, Hugh McManus, and Stephanie Walker.
Here.
All right. Thank you, board members, for being here. At this point, we will have our invocation that will be brought today remotely from Pastor Matt Moorhead of Crossway Chapel. We'll do that this time.
Hi, my name is Matt Moorhead, and I'm one of the pastors of Crossway Chapel of Wilmington. And I just wanted to thank you all for the way you serve our county and our area. Grateful for each one of you, and privileged to be able to pray for your meeting today. God, I do want to thank you for each person represented in this meeting, in this leadership team, for the Board of Education. I'm thankful for the role that they play in serving the students and families and individuals in our county. And God, I ask for your blessing on this time today in their meeting. I thank you for the ways in which you have guided and strengthened them during this complicated and difficult season. And I pray that you continue to grant wisdom where they lack it. Your word says that it's good to give thanks to you for all the good things you have done. And your word also says that where we lack wisdom, that we should come to the one who provides the wisdom that we just simply do not have on our own, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so we ask on their behalf that you grant them wisdom where they lack it, that you grant them unity where they need it, where they need vision for the future, even if that future is just a couple steps in front of them, that you grant them the vision to see what needs to be done and how to lead well, how to serve well. And I pray that you strengthen them for that task. But thank you for the teachers, for the administrators, and for the board as well, and just the way in which they serve and lead the education system in our county. And I ask that you go before them, and in this time that you truly superintend their time, that there be a humility and graciousness in the way that they're able to operate with one another that would help them to effectively serve our county. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you that you put people in positions of leadership and service in order to benefit our city and our county, and I pray that their leadership would do just that. Thank you for your kindness to us. I'm grateful that you are ultimately the one that we trust in, and pray that we would do that more and more each moment and each day. In Jesus' name, amen.
We've asked Ms. Mason to lead us in the pledge. Ms. Mason?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right, at this point, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Passes 6-0. We will do as we have in the past. Again, we've asked Ms. Craybill to keep up with time. Thank you, Ms. Craybill, for doing that. We will be going through each item. If there's one that we need to discuss further or have a question about, please stop me and we will do so. This is again for next Tuesday. We'll start out with call to order, roll call, approval of the agenda, the invocation, presentation of colors, national anthem. Ms. Walker has agreed to do our Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Walker doing that. Approval of the minutes, recognitions. We've allotted 10 minutes. Does that sound about right, sir?
Yeah.
No. Sirs? Okay. Yes.
You're moving along so fast, you completely passed. I wanted to look at the agenda for a minute and to consolidate. So we just whizzed right on by it. So if we could go back to that, please?
To which one?
The approval of the agenda.
Okay, I'm there.
I'd like to go ahead and take the two legal items for the consent agenda and move them to the legal item under old business, B1, B2, and B3, under, what is that?
Okay, well, can we-
11 old business.
Let's go ahead and when we get to that point, why don't we do that?
Okay, I just
If you
thought
don't-
it was an agenda thing to move them down.
Yeah, we will be. Well, like I
Okay.
said, when we get to that point, we'll stop and that way there we're not kind of jumping all around.
Alrighty.
So recognition, we're good for 10 minutes, okay? Student voice, we've allotted 10 minutes. Teacher voice, 10 minutes. Superintendent's report.
Mr. Willoughby,
Yes, ma'am?
do we know who we're having for teacher voice?
It was on the thing.
Okay,
Yeah, it was, yeah.
it changes. Okay, I didn't look at it since then. I'll go back and look. I'm sorry?
Ms. Harris from Hanover High School.
Okay, I can look that up.
Okay. Superintendent's report, 5 minutes, sir. Yes?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I move that we instruct the superintendent and the board attorney, Mr. Vogel, to be ready to begin the annual superintendent evaluation process at our next meeting in June. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
To the end of June.
No, our June monthly meeting.
Oh, the one.
That's not when it starts. It starts,
It's supposed to start in April, but
well, no, what happens is all the collection starts. I never give you anything in April. You'll have all of your information just as normal in July because I have to wait for all the data to come in. I don't have any data.
We had to have all of our, well, I made a motion. We had to have all of our evaluations.
it
in
wasn't
by the
seconded,
end of-
was it?
But I will second it,
Okay, we have first and a second. Now we have discussion.
so we can discuss it.
We had to have all of our stuff done by the end of June, all of our stuff, because
July.
remember, I was sick. I was sick and I couldn't get it done, and I was the only one that didn't have it done.
It's July. If you'll go back, you'll look. It was when we switched over attorneys, remember? And Mr. Vogel had to finish what Barrington and Smith had started. It's always been,
With all due respect, I remember clearly I was sick at the end of June, and I was supposed to be done by June. And I was the only one that hadn't finished, and I felt really badly about it. So I stand on that recollection.
Okay, well, we do have a motion.
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
so, this is kind of out of the blue, and I'm wondering where Ms. Bradford, if you could ask Ms. Bradford, where she recommends that we insert this into this agenda. As we're going through the agenda, and we're up to the superintendent's report and the board chair report, we're not up to a spot where we would insert a superintendent anything. Because that would be a closed session matter anyway.
Right, right.
So I'm confused as to why this was interjected right here, right now.
Ms. Bradford, would you like to speak to that?
District Bureauman had superintendent, so this had superintendent, felt like they went together.
So did you ask for that ahead of time to be on the agenda like we're supposed to do? 6 days ahead of time?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So the chair doesn't have to? Sorry.
May I just ask for clarity, Mr. Chairman? Are we saying that the process will be started on Tuesday, or saying for him to start collecting the materials? I want clarity on what the motion is prior to my decision.
Right. I'm not even
Well,
sure.
and I think And I don't want to speak for you, Dr. Faust, but I think that, in our meeting this morning, you had mentioned that you would have that all together for our agenda meeting at the end of the meeting, basically a month from now.
Yeah.
So it'll be all together.
In
In June.
the June
In June.
28th or whatever that means.
June 25th, I believe it is. June 25th. Okay. Ms. Walker?
I just have a question. So we're using the state tool still, correct? And it's my understanding that it has to begin, like, we don't start it until the superintendent fills it out
Right,
first.
he does his,
And then we do it. I know I think when the new board came in, I think we had, maybe it was me that harped on June 30th as the date, because I feel like the process, I think according to our policy, maybe not starts in April, and then we're supposed to, but I get it, but I know we've been doing it a little bit later. So if we get it on the agenda, we're going to just discuss, like, what would we discuss?
I would say it would be a closed session. But Mr. Vogel, if you want to jump in too, on this, make sure, if I am, especially if I speak correctly, that it would be a closed session discussion in June. He would present his own self-evaluation, and then we would go from there. He would give us his different, what are those things called? The goals.
Self-evaluation.
Yeah, but self-evaluation, but the
Artifacts.
artifacts, thank you, there's the word. Artifacts, and then we would go in and he could actually do our own ratings in July. Is that correct, Mr. Vogel?
Yeah, that's right. That kind of evaluation work, occurs in closed session because it's a personnel matter. And if I'm not mistaken, though, I thought Ms. Bradford was requesting that the superintendent kind of address the status of it in his superintendent report next Tuesday. I thought that was her motion.
It's not what I heard, yeah.
Yeah. And Mr. Chairman, I will amend to add the June monthly board meeting closed session.
Okay, so it'll be next week's closed session.
Closed session.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Ms. Graybill?
Oh, wait, so we're talking about this on next Tuesday?
That's what she's, I guess, motion.
But I thought we already heard that we're not getting any artifacts until June 30th, until June 28th. So why are we talking about it at closed session? I'm not certain I understand that.
We haven't had a second, so I will second what,
You said second.
well, she amended it.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
You're allowed to amend your own motion.
I had it. I'm looking at,
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yes,
I'm trying to find it in policy, but I seem to recall that, and I could be incorrect, that this needs to be done prior to the start of the next school year. My question would be, are we referring to, because we do have year-round schools, are we referring to when they start their school year or when the traditional schools start their school year? That would be my question.
And Mr. Vogel, I'll go back to you on that one.
There's no set rule on that. I mean, obviously, the sooner the better. I do think the board probably did more work last year in June than is being contemplated to do this June. Though I didn't begin until July 1st last year, but I inherited a lot of work that had already been done in June. So it's up to the board how it wants to proceed.
Ms. Graybill?
So I would like to propose that we, before we do our part, the evaluation, that we have a training session, because it was kind of painfully obvious last time that we didn't understand, all of us collectively did not understand the tool and how it worked and what it meant. I mean, and even though there are some of us that have been through that training several times, a refresher is never bad, because this is a big tool and it's a big job. So if we could commit between now and the time that we get Dr. Faust's artifacts, that we get some training on the tool that we are using. And it doesn't have to be long. Just remember, we've had like two consultants come in and do that. NCSBA could do that, for us too, free of charge. So I would like to, I don't know if that has to be a motion, but I would like to get some consensus that we do that.
No problem with that, I don't think. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion on that?
Could you repeat the motion again, because I just
Bradford?
want to make sure I know what
But
you're
you
doing.
did
Surely.
amend it too.
I move to instruct the superintendent and the board attorney, Mr. Vogel, to be ready to begin the annual superintendent evaluation process next week at our June monthly board meetings closed session period.
Okay. Ms. Bowie, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bradford,
Yes?
Ms. Craybill,
Yes.
Ms. Barnhart,
Yes.
Ms. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Wildeboard,
Yes.
and Ms. Mason.
Yes.
Okay. That passes 6-0. We will start that process next Tuesday. We will have a closed session for another purpose that I will share with you in closed session. So that we will have 2 reasons to do that. Okay. Carrying back to our, by the way, I love this. We need to keep this very bright like this. I can't, not like I have to
Can't
go
lose it.
find it. I love it, being right there in front of me. Okay, so my report, then we have the call to audience, consensus items. Go ahead.
I have B, C, D, E questions on it,
Okay, let's start with B.
so. My question on B was just why the difference, 2 of them had option B and 1 of them had option A, so just why they were marked different with those options.
Okay.
And how that compares to the traditional high schools of evaluating that school, which was most things.
Okay.
That'd be you, Joyce.
And you're on.
You're smiling at me, I appreciate
Consensus
that.
items B. And I got you next.
That's okay. So I was looking through, and two of them had option B, 1 of them had option A, and so I was curious why and how this compares. The option A, how does that compare to our traditional high schools being evaluated with that?
So option A is the traditional method, so there is no difference.
So they will be compared to our traditional high schools.
Yes.
Okay.
So option B basically is a modified option, and basically what it says is it's broken down into 3 different components, and it is student persistence, student achievement, and student growth. So it is different. So the student persistence is something we don't have with the other options. So basically, they look at the number of students that start enroll, complete and finish enrolling in the school, graduation rate, and things to that nature, because you're looking at alternative settings. So with the option B, that is something that is different there, and they look at the different components with that factor. So that is 20%, student achievement is 20%, and student growth is 60% in that option.
Come over here to Ms. Bradford. Do you want to go through B, C, and D? Or do we have, let's
Can we
just stay
just
on B.
finish this one
Let's stay
here?
on B.
Why don't we just start at A, and.
Okay, yeah,
roll down
so
one
anybody
more?
else have a question on B?
Finish B, yes.
Anybody have B? Go ahead, Ms. Mason.
Related to that, has Mosley always been option A?
Yes.
So they've always been evaluated with the traditional?
Let me say, for the last several years, they have been option A. I can research and see when they change, but I'll have to get back with you if you want to know that. But yes, for the last several years, they've been option A.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else on B?
Yes.
B, Ms. Craybill.
I thought we had a lot of discussion about where Mosley fit in as an alternative school, and that we were going to be, that we weren't going to be an alternative school anymore, that we were going to apply not to be an alternative school. So why are we filling out this form to be a modified school if that's not the direction that we want to be headed?
If you recall, it's the board's decision to be an alternative school.
Yes.
And the board decided that it did not want to change. Mosley did.
Decided that? No,
Yes.
We already-
Sorry.
Okay.
Anybody else on B? Go ahead.
My question is really on all of them. Further down, I have some specifics, but I was concerned, each one seems to have its own contract, and I've asked before, so can you guys report to us on all of them? Have they been reviewed by the board attorney, or is it following attorney-approved template that we've used in the past? Because I saw some things in some of these that I'm going to call out, but so I'm asking you that for all of them. And I will continue to do that.
Are you asking me for Mosley?
That's
for-
an Ashley question.
That's, you can answer for B, but really, it's probably an Ashley for A through T.
Oh,
I'm going to let each individual senior staff member talk about their specific contract.
Okay.
Because they actually submit those to the board attorney or not.
I think we're done with B, so we'll head on to C. Ms. Barnhart, you had C?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to verify, is this just showing the public that we are actually applying for the CTE, like, that we've applied for it?
yes, we have to do this each year, bring it to the board for approval.
All right, perfect.
That's not C. C going once, going twice. Going on to D. Anybody D?
I don't have any questions about it, but I won't be able to vote on it next week.
Okay. I think it's good,
But also, okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, talk about the contract.
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment that that is the same MOU template that we use, and there were no standards changed, so there was no need for a review.
And that is D?
D.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am?
I'd like some clarity with the MOU with communities and schools. Are they going to be working with individuals from Port City United next year along in this MOU? Or,
So this MOU is only for the services that are directly created by communities and schools, and we don't have any further direction on whether Port City United is going to be a program that is going to be utilized.
utilized by this organization, and that would be
Or at all.
in our, because I know we have a separate currently that expires in June for
Right.
Port City United.
Right.
But under this umbrella,
Yeah, this MOU does not include any Port City United
Okay.
Services. This is standard, as we have done for several years, for the student support, basically removing barriers to learning support programs that communities and schools has done under the CIS model,
okay.
which is separate from that.
Ms. Bradford?
Okay, so, Ms. Barnum, following that, we'd heard, and I don't want to go across the lines between closed session and open session, but we heard about either an employee or a contract worker for communities and schools and them being let go for poor behavior. And are we addressing that as we go forward? Have we changed anything the way that we are working with people after that event?
So, Communities in Schools agrees to comply with our policies and operate in a very consistent manner with the school district in resolving any types of concerns. And I think that's probably about as specific as I can be. But the terms of our MOU have not changed.
Okay.
Going on with E.
Can I just make a comment too?
Favor?
To address Ms. Bradford's concern about the contract, that I wanted to call our attention because all of the contracts that I have been looking at, except for the one where Mr. Vogel's contract, where it says this MOU may be terminated by either party without cause upon written notice of at least 30 days. The parties may renew this MOU by written agreement for an additional one-year term. So that is the template that we have been using for every other contract that we have, that we can terminate when we want to terminate, as long as we give the appropriate notice. So I just wanted to kind of call that out.
Are we on E?
We are now on E. Go ahead.
Okay, and E reminded me, if you'll go to E, Article 5, miscellaneous, certificate of insurance. See, this is one that fluctuates from agreement to agreement. This one says, and this is what I'm used to, having to have furnished certificates of insurance showing that I had what was requested in my day-to-day day job. And so on this one, E, it has the correct language. And then in some of the later ones, I noticed that's not in there. And so for consistency, that's what I'm asking about these contracts. So I'm just pointing out in E, Article 5, miscellaneous A, that's the standard language that we've had with some contracts, but some of these on this sheet today don't have that. and I'll get to them when we get to them.
Okay. Anything else on E?
I have a question,
Yes, ma'am.
Pat. So, this is, I guess this is for you, this is your department. One of the lines in there that was explaining what Dragonfly is, it says submission and management of documents and info related to student athletes. Is that about like any sort of portal or the NIL for students or scholarship opportunities? Is that what information of documents and management of that is, or?
Right, I can get you a list of exactly which pieces of information would be in here, but of course this, because there will be personally identifiable information in here, that's why we use the MOU and to cover any of that confidentiality. But I can give you a list of
Yeah, I was just
all the
curious on
information.
what the information, because this wasn't available when my daughter was a student athlete.
Right.
And so it was just curious.
Yes, and this is now the universal system that's used. We don't just use it here in New Hanover County, it's used across the state.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right. Ms. Barnhart?
And I just had a question on that. Under Article 3, talking about the cost, and it said there's no cost to our student staff and their parents and guardians, but then it said you can opt into an upgraded fee-based. Could you elaborate on what that is? Are we doing that? Are we opting into this potentially fee-based?
So that would be on an individual basis.
Okay.
And so I can provide you with what that information would include.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else on the E? Nope. All right, F, Brooklyn Arts Music Academy.
And this is our standard MOU, and we have been doing the Brooklyn program for the 2 pre-Ks for quite a few years right now. Quite a few years now. So we would like to continue this program.
I just wanted to point out that this is minor. There's a typo on number 4, third bullet. Brooklyn is missing its N. That I don't think it was us. Well, who knows what? Somebody was typing fast. Number 4, third bullet, the word Brooklyn is missing its N.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll carry on with G, Travel Tracker Software.
Yes.
Go ahead.
First question, who wrote that contract? Did Travel Tracker write that one? And has it been reviewed by the board attorney?
This has not been approved, has not been reviewed by the board attorney. This vendor has software that they're not willing to sign our contract. So in the past, we have signed their terms and conditions. There's no changes to these terms and conditions. They're the same as what we signed 3 years ago, and this is a 3-year contract renewal. And if we have an issue and we need to get out of the contract, we just have to give, I believe it's 30 days notice, but I can confirm that real quick.
It's totally written in their favor, and it's, almost $12,000. So I think it would be prudent to have the board attorney review it before we sign it and agree to pay that.
We certainly can. I don't think they'd be willing to make any changes to the terms, so we would probably, if not, then we just wouldn't have the software. But we'll be glad to do that. Number 6. Yes, yep, it's a 30 days advance notice if we intend to not renew the contract.
Well, it'd be better to know in advance if there was something there that wasn't palatable than to be sued to perform on the contract.
Yep, and so I don't know if Mr. Vogel would like to speak to standard terms and conditions that I've shared with his staff in the past. And I believe normally the response is if there's something the vendor's not willing to make an adjustment on, then it's up to, I guess, the board, senior staff to determine if that's something they're okay with. But if you'd like to speak more of that, I'd appreciate it.
No, there's nothing more I can say. I haven't been provided, as you noted, I haven't been provided a contract to review.
Okay, so I will do that, and you want me to bring that in July then?
Well, if you can, you've got a whole week.
Okay. I'll be glad to do that. Thank you.
Mr. Wilborn?
Graybill.
So when does this contract end? Like, are we under the time limit of our 30 days? Just in case we don't get Mr. Vogel's approval before Tuesday?
If we are able, actually, we will be beyond the 30 day. I mean, we will not be within the 30 days if we're not able to approve at the board meeting. So we just wouldn't have the software for whatever amount of time until we're able to get a contract approved.
Well,
So my question is, what will that disrupt?
Yeah, that's,
It's billing related to field trips. Is there anything else that we're keeping in travel tracker other than the field trips?
It's just anytime our school buses are used outside the normal delivery of students to and from school.
One of my concerns is they're tracking our student athletes' information, our students' field trips information. It's got a lot of personal information that they have access to. And I just, before, I vote to approve it, I want to make sure that our board attorney says, yeah, that's okay. What you did 3 years ago, I wasn't here.
Mr. Vogel, will you have time to review that by next week?
Of course, we'll make time, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
And
Okay.
it's uploaded into Assembly. Should I send it in a separate email? Would that be more helpful?
No, you can access it on the line.
Yeah, we have access to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Woodward.
Ms. Graybill.
So if we didn't have the software tracker, well, first, two questions. One, this doesn't track students. This tracks our buses leaving the school, right? Leaving the depot, going to a school, going to a location. It doesn't track the students.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's tracking the cost of like the fuel,
Right.
the wear and tear on the vehicles, so that we can charge the school or department for whatever the cost was to transportation. It's in essence a way for us to bill and reimburse transportation for their expenses. But Eddie, please add anything. That would be helpful.
Yeah, that's all I want to make clear, that we're not tracking students on this. And then let's just say perhaps that it doesn't get reviewed by the attorney, or he has concerns that we can't approve on June the 3rd. How would we do that? You'd have to have a person assigned to that task of like logging it in or making spreadsheets or
We
doing
would
something
do
like
that, we would have to come up with a way to do that manually.
Okay. Which would be like a lot of time, perhaps. Yeah. Like a dedicated employee almost?
Well, yes, it'd be time for transportation as well as the schools submitting those requests, because they can access Travel Tracker at their school on their computer. They submit those requests and they see that it's approved or denied.
Like in real time, and then they can see what it's gonna cost and then make appropriate decisions based on that?
Correct.
Okay, so it's kind of a big deal if we don't approve it.
And just to make sure everybody understands, the meeting is actually June 4th, not June 3rd. So, okay. We were going to, did you have anything?
I did. I just wanted to clarify, it's the board's decision to work with us, so when consulting counsel to give advice, he would be sharing that with us, that we would be making the decision of adjusting based on advice. So it's not his decision to whether or not, it's his opinion to give to us to help us make the decision. So,
Correct.
okay.
Okay, we're going to carry on. H is authorizing increase in micro purchase threshold resolution. Nothing. I is sync law. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Mason?
I continue to have concerns about the term of this contract going all the way till December of 2025. But I guess I'm confused as to why we moved the special education bullet up underneath everything and took it out of the first paragraph. I don't know if anybody can answer that.
Didn't we do that because we only approved them to be special education?
Right. Well, what I'm saying is, if you read the contract and look back at the old contract, it says effective, current, what we have in front of us, effective March 12, 2024, Sync Law, PLLC, agrees to serve as attorneys. It doesn't say as EC attorneys. It's just in parentheses up underneath the heading. So I didn't know why that was taken out of the paragraph itself.
Yes, sir.
That was not intentional. I'll be glad to add that back if.
Ms. Bradford?
Two things. I strongly object to an 18-month agreement. As I have said repeatedly, we adopted this agreement in March without having reviewed it, without having seen it. It doesn't follow the template for attorneys. It was missing the revision and termination That was completely cut out. It was missing insurance and taxes and other pieces. And that one had no insurance clause in it. This one now has an insurance clause that says, Sync Law shall procure commercial general liability of $1 million for each occurrence with $2 million general aggregate coverage by June 5th. So my question would be, they don't have it now? Because it wasn't in their last agreement. Did they have it now? And have we been represented by an attorney that didn't have insurance? And do you have copies of their insurance if we do have it?
I do not have copies of their insurance. Last time I spoke with them, they did not have this general liability coverage, and they were working to get the coverage because in the original contract, we did not include it as a requirement, so they did not have it at that time.
Wow. So could we request the copies of the invoices we've had from when this first contract went into effect and see how much work we've had done?
We
without
haven't
the attorney
had,
having
they haven't
insurance?
completed any work for us.
They've done no work since March?
That's my understanding. Can you confirm?
That's correct.
Any other questions? Ms. Graybill?
Yes, so I did want to point out in this contract, again, where it says the terms and contract revisions upon mutual agreement, the contract may be revised at any time. This contract may be amended only by written amendments duly executed between our board and Sync Law. Termination for convenience, the board may terminate this contract at its complete discretion upon 20-day calendar notice in writing from the board to Sync Law prior to the date of termination. So that is the template that we've been using. And again, the only one that I have seen that does not have that 20 days in it is the one that we have with Mr. Vogel currently. Because he didn't, well, I don't know why. It's not there, but it's not there.
Mr. Chairman.
But so to Ms. Bradford's point, I agree with her on, let's look at Sync Law, like letter I and letter O. Let's pull those out of consensus and put them under the old business legal services so that we can be talking about all that at one time. And we might even want to think about just throwing in the Pointer Sproul contract that we also have.
I know what she's talking about because Vogel, when I looked this morning, Vogel was under consensus. It's not anymore under this one. So, yeah, they've already moved that one down, but I do agree.
I got to look at 1 o'clock before I
know.
come.
Okay,
I know,
so-
same.
Well, I think that's a good idea, and let's go ahead and talk about, let's move I down to the legal services. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a first and second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so we'll remove I from the consensus item and put that down under legal services. I think we're going to have to address the 30 minutes, but we'll get to that when we get to that.
Can we also think about with that move, and it's not on the green agenda and it's not on the white agenda, the original. This one, it's not on here. Put yellow, this is like safety yellow green, sorry. If we could perhaps pull up the Pointer Sproul contract at the same time so that we can be looking at the comparisons to make sure that any legal contracts that we have for legal services all say the same thing. Would that be something that we could just add in just for comparison purposes?
Would you mind having that prepared?
Is that easy enough to do? But those are our only 3 law firms right now, is Vogel, Sync, and Pointer Sproul, for legal services, right? That we don't contract anybody else. Okay.
Ms. Bradford?
Yeah, and I just want to point out, this is Sync number 1, 2 pages. The template that you told us last month we were using is 4 pages. Sync number 2 that we just got is 3 plus the signature page. And I'll be just really honest, you guys, it's sloppy. They renumbered by hand at the bottom of the pages. I'm going to have a hard time continuing with an attorney that hasn't done any work for us, that does a sloppy contract. The first one they submit doesn't have any insurance on it. They don't have any insurance. That's probably why it was left off. I'm going to have a really hard time in a week, of dealing with this. We shouldn't have done it. We should have read it. We should have had it reviewed. We didn't. I didn't vote for that. Most of the rest of you did. And it was a mistake. I'm sorry.
Thank you for your opinion.
Mr.
We will
Chair.
carry on. Ms. Walker.
So I just want to be clear on it. We approved last month the template, I think, that actually had brought to us. So
Yep.
all we're trying to do is make sure they're all in uniformity. I don't think we're going to rehash the contract itself because we've already approved it, right?
Right.
Okay, I just making sure.
Okay, carrying on with what is now I, was J, year-end budget amendment resolution. Around, see nobody.
Yes, me.
Bradford?
I just want to make sure that nothing moving on that year-end budget resolution. There's another one coming up too. No money's coming out of our fund balance. Thank you.
Around, see nothing. Okay, copy, L, I'm just gonna say with the old letters, if you don't mind. Color copier contract for print shop. Nope. Okay. Black and white copier contract for print shop. N, capital outlay.
I'll ask on LNM. We're just doing this because it's time for our annual contract, and we shopped that out and compared it to other companies to see if we could get a better rate, right?
Right, and these have not gone to the attorney for review because these were using their terms and conditions, so I can certainly send those to Mr. Vogel if that's what we want to do.
Yeah, I just was hoping that we shopped them out. I've done better on my copier contracts in the last couple of years than I have in the past.
I can provide that information.
Ms. Grego?
So I'm going to ask the same question that I asked before. Are we under the gun to, excuse me, to approve these contracts? And if we don't, are we already missing what we've said we're going to do? And if we don't do it at June the 4th meeting, then are we stuck not with our print shop not being able to print our work?
We would have a break in service as far as contracts, but we could probably communicate with the vendor and get, a month by month until we have a new contract approved. It would just be based on the current contract.
Okay.
Okay. Carrying on with, where are we? O, Microsoft.
You skipped over M, capital fund project transfer.
Okay, I always skip the N. So capital outlay fund project transfer. Okay.
Can somebody explain what that is, please?
So this budget transfer deals with our with local capital fund as well as the 2014 bond funds. We have gone back over the past couple of years. Every project that's been complete and has any savings has been identified, as well as a couple of projects that we deferred, knowing we weren't getting capital for this fiscal year, to address some of the highest priority needs, such as New Hanover. The new projects are New Hanover High School, Myrtle Grove flooring that we'll be doing this summer, some additional funding for Williston Boiler. The bids came in a little higher than we anticipated. Anderson Playground Equipment. I'm happy to say the PTA raised funds for the playground structure. We would like to move it to a better location for drainage, so we would pay for that. And then Winter Park, replacement of Winter Park, their sewer lift station. So those are the new projects. All the other projects are either savings or deferred capital.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see, I believe we are now on the Microsoft Enrollment for Education Solutions Agreement with Soft Choice.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah?
I see P and R
We're
is
on O.
exactly the same thing, and I went and looked at them. Is it changed on the yellow? Did somebody catch it?
We're on
O.
Oh, sorry.
Has anybody got anything on O?
Thought we already did O.
Nope, no O's. All right, award of milk contract for child nutrition, P. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the old one, Microsoft EES and so on. Skip it, and then it's down there.
Oh,
Is
yeah,
that a
O and
second
Q.
agreement? I see it on here twice, and I looked at them, and sometimes I can't see a difference in things.
No?
Okay.
Okay, let's cross off Q then. All right, we'll get rid of Q, thank you. Change order for owner contractor agreement for New Hanover High School Title IX softball field renovations. See no one? Carrying on. Consideration for bids, New Hanover High School safety and security upgrades.
And I'd just like for somebody to speak to that just out loud so the public can hear about it too. I mean, I don't have any questions about it, just like for it to be out there.
So this is a continuation of our safety and security improvements throughout our district. We're following along with the 2019 risk vulnerability assessment that was completed by True North. They had prioritized not only the recommended work, but locations. And so New Hanover High School will be constructing a security vestibule along with some renovations to their main entrance. And that work will be done this summer.
Awesome, very good. Okay, and then we end with what will be now S, but it was T, Spark NC 2024-2025 MOU.
Is this just
Great,
the,
Bill.
That's new.
Yes.
is this just a continuation of what we did?
Yes, and it is new, Ms. Bradford, because I was working with the attorney, and we took some time. He was working with the company that we need to get it up here for funding purposes. So, but it's just a renewal, so we can get our funding for them. But yes, Mr. Vogel reviewed it, and he actually didn't get it back from them until, I don't think they sent it back to him until like Friday evening.
Dr. Fauci, you might want to address this if you know it. At the graduation for CTEC, Principal Skipper told me that she had 5 students graduating that day that had jobs on Monday.
Yeah, it was
in
on
high,
Facebook.
high tech. That was just really, really exciting.
There's a great program, a connection with CTEC and Spark NC. So Spark NC, it's been a very good opportunity for our students, and we're actually looking at some other opportunities for it. I'll just say that. That'll be all I'll say. But yes, this is just a renewal for our current Spark NC lab.
Okay, carrying on, we have policy consensus. Mason?
Oh, hold on a second. So are we going to count, still stay with 5?
I think 5, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that's good there.
just making sure.
Policy consensus, Ms. Mason. We have 10 minutes allotted at this time.
I mean, I would think unless anybody wants to pull anything, that would be enough time, more than enough time.
Ms. Grable?
I think that we should at least move up to 20 minutes because there were several policies that I didn't get a chance to weigh in on that I'm going to have questions about. And the changes to the emergency policy, I think we need to have more of a discussion with the whole board and not just the 2 people that were in attendance, 3 people that were in attendance at the meeting. So I think we should up it to 20 minutes.
20 minutes sounds good to me. Going on to old business, Head Start grant. Dr. Faison, Ms. Miles?
I'm going to bring up Dr. Cook, and she is going to just give a brief overview.
We're not supposed to hear the overview now. That's coming up.
Yeah, it comes up for next week's on next week's agenda.
Yeah, so yeah, we're not going to do, well,
Well, is she
it's
doing
not
the
my
pre-
call, not my
Is she
call.
doing the pre-K update?
She's going to give you just an overview, something real quick.
Okay. Is that the pre-K update that we're doing later?
But it's not on the agenda for today's meeting.
Well,
That-
unless it's a pre-K update up here.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon.
Carry on.
Like Dr. Faison said, I'm Dr. Trish Cook, Executive Director of Federal Programs, and Ms. Shannon Smiles, who's the Director of our Early Childhood Education Program. We just wanted to let you know that with the Head Start grant for which we applied, we're in competitive status. And so that means that any organization can also apply for that grant. We haven't heard anything official yet, but we do anticipate hearing something by the end of the week. And once we know more and have more information, we'd like to do a presentation for you next week at the board meeting.
Okay. We'll definitely put that on. We have it. Is that it? Okay, thank you. How much time do you think you will need for that? Thank you. Shannon Smiles, 3 hours. I got it. You got it.
I would say
20? Oh, I was going to say 25 minutes. Yeah.
Okay,
15.
15?
15?
Yeah.
They'll have a
Yeah.
presentation and kind of give you an overview. Today, they really don't have any information to share because we're waiting for
Okay.
the official notice, but we want to give you an update, but we really just don't have any information
Thank
to
you.
share.
Why don't we say 20? I always like that.
20's good.
You know, if we're
Yeah.
done in 15, then great. If we're
Okay.
not, let's say 20
And
minutes.
Mr.
So
Wilson?
you have 20, Ms. Miles, 3 hours and 20 minutes.
That's not enough for Ms. Miles.
Ms. Bradford?
And can we just briefly in that touch on how this affects overall pre-K? And then, because we've got those two pre-K classrooms hanging out there now, and so I just need I need a more complete picture of the whole thing.
They're going to give you an entire picture, and they're
Good.
going to give you an update of how this affects the entire Head Start pre-K. So they're going to give a clear picture of our program as a district level.
Do we know which two pre-Ks those are, and we're just holding that just because we don't know yet, or is that
So
unidentified?
basically, we are going to,
Talking about the
next
county
week,
programs.
give an overview at the district level, because the biggest thing we want to make sure is to share what how many students we're serving and the amount of classrooms we're serving. So I think when we share next week, you'll see and get that clear picture. We just don't have the information now, so it was just, we wanted to give you something, but we just don't have that information at this time. So I think next week you'll really have a clear picture.
All right, carrying on to that, so again, Ms. Grable, we have 20 minutes for the policy consensus, 20 minutes for the Head Start grant discussion. Legal services, now we have the legal services local law firm, now we also have the sync in there. I'm thinking we need at least 45 minutes for that.
So are we calling them B, legal services, and like subset Vogel, subset Sink,
That would be
subset
fine.
Pointer? Is that how?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's go 45 minutes for that.
So there's no C, it's B, 1, 2, and 3?
That's what I,
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was proposing.
suggesting,
That's
yeah.
it. Yeah. I think we're also going to need to have Crossley in there or something too. That's
What?
where you had met brought up Crossley. That's in that
We can talk about that in the legal services.
Right,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying, that's all in that same spot. Okay. Interim budget resolution. I'm looking over at Ms. Sutton. How long is that going to be? And I'll go with you, Ms. Bradford. So you're-
Probably just depends on if there are any questions. I'd say 5 minutes.
Okay, let's say 10. You sure? Ms. Bradford, you have a question?
Okay, just in reading this, we're adopting it. We have state public school fund, local current expense fund, enterprise fund, federal grant fund, other restricted revenue fund. Just in that, can you explain all those things, so that people are on the same page when you do that, what you're going to present to us? Because that's a lot of funds for people to sort out.
Sure. So normally in an interim budget resolution, if we knew that our revenue was going to stay pretty consistent with the current year or going up, we would normally say, if you were to go back and look at previous years, that we would continue at the same level as the current year spending levels. And so that's that first sentence you see under the main points. However, since we know that we're going to see decreases related to federal funding, and we're going to see decreases related to capital, and then also I know that there are some grants that are getting, or that will be decreased, or I haven't received an award letter for. So we've adjusted the current spending levels for next year in anticipation of the reduction in funding or revenue. And so that's what this spending resolution is for. So it's just to continue operations of the school system until we have a resolution in place, but to not spend more than the revenue we think we're going to get at this point in time.
Okay. All right, finishing up, we have the new business. I don't think anything's under that. Then we have a closed session, probably at least a half hour for that, so it's 30 minutes for that. The consensus item, I have another personnel report there, which should take about 5 minutes.
We're going to have 2 personnel reports?
We'll have to. You ruined my surprise for closed session. I get it. All right, and then correspondence, let's drop that down to 5 minutes. And announcements, 5 minutes. So what do we have, Ms. Craybill?
270 minutes plus a 5-minute break, so 275 minutes. Let me divide it up real quick. Can't do that in the head, because I could have done it in the head.
Yep.
Just making sure, 275 divided by 60, 4 hours and a half.
4.5 hours, so.
It's a little over 4.5, so.
So by our policy, we need to end at 4 hours, so we need to cut something. What can we, yeah?
Just a thought, I know that a lot of us have very strong opinions about a lot of things, but I think that would be very important in this situation to limit the number of times that we are saying, like, limit the number of times that we are speaking, so that we can get it through as much as possible. It would be better if we didn't eliminate stuff, in my opinion, because I think a lot of it is things that we need to address, and some of the things that are going to take the longest are things that we need to address. And so I would suggest that we limit the number of times that we each get to speak.
Okay.
For the minutes in them, I would second that.
You have a first and a second?
I don't think she made a motion.
Wasn't a motion, it was a suggestion. Okay.
So if we are following Robert's Rules of Order strictly, like we've been trying to do, it says that each person is allowed to speak twice, and you have designated 2 minutes, in 2 minutes each time. That's not our Robert's Rules of Order, that's just what we've settled on, even though we haven't written that down. So I am not in favor of limiting people to 1 time, because these are topics that we all need to talk about.
I don't think I said that, I'm sorry. If that did not come out clearly, the 2 times was what I was saying.
There's not going on.
I mean,
Ms. Walker?
is it a possibility that if we are close, that we could just extend our time just to get it done? I know we don't want to do that typically.
We did last week.
Right,
last
but if
time.
we have to, and it's, because we don't want to cut things off. we just
Well, I mean,
extend
and
it.
I agree. I mean, at 4 hours, what I could do is I could say, we're at 4 hours, we can either stop or we can extend. I mean, and
And
the
some
board
of these
can-
things, we added more time as a cush, so we may not use
Right,
all of that time.
right. Ms. Barnhart?
I mean, I respect what everybody's saying here, but I don't think it's smart for us to go into a 4-hour and 35-minute meeting with the just notion that we're just going to keep going. I think we should hone down on the time that we spend and be diligent and stick to the agenda for the time being. I hear what everybody's saying, but we become less productive the longer we go on together. So I am not in favor of wanting to extend this for 4.5 hours. I do agree that everything on here is important, but I think that we should stick to the timelines, and I think we should hone down, even if it's chopping 5 minutes off of a couple of these things each, so we can get under the 4 hours.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Breakfast?
Just to support both that suggestion, and Ms. Mason, I just came from a state level meeting that ran 2 days that was chaired, and on contentious, the chair would say, it was Billy Miller, he would say, I know this is going to be contentious, so we're going to ask you to speak for or against, we're going to call for and against, and you do that sometimes. He said, we're going to limit the time to this amount, and we're going to stick to it, so it didn't go on all day and not get to the end of the business, which, you know, is so typical in a meeting that has contentious items. So I would agree with Ms. Mason that we could limit our time and stick to it.
Okay. Well, I will do my very best. I'll bring my running shoes, and we will keep it as close to 4 hours as we possibly can. And in fact, you know, I have no problem. I don't think there's anything that I have to say that's huge. So why don't we just go ahead and delete my 5-minute chair report. That'll at least bring us a little closer to that 4 hours. So let's do that. Unless I will get doing for next week. All right. Very good. Is there anything else we need to talk about with this? If not, we will work forth to keep it as close to that 4 hours as possible. Looking at our schedule for today, at this point we will move into closed session. Let me get my closed session sheet out. Okay. I would entertain a motion to move into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143, 318, 11C for the following purposes: to prevent the disclosure of information as privileged or confidential pursuant to General Statute 115C 402 and not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes, and to consult with the attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the board, including in respect to John Doe's 15 through 17 versus New Hanover County Board of Education, and to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, conditions of appointment, conditions of initial employment of an individual employed or considered for employment within the school system, or to hear or investigate a complaint, charge, or grievance by or against any individual employee. Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Not all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, like sign. We have carried 6-0. We are in closed session.
Thank you for those updates in the board packet.
Oh, you're welcome.
Save us a few minutes.
All right. Part three.
State is coming tomorrow to look at our model classrooms. So has some able to use special dollars to do some literacy model classes for teachers who are doing very well in the case of area of literacy. We became one of the issues and teachers can come and then you can also participate in training teachers. And so that is one of the issues that the state is like, not this, we'd love to see this. So they're coming tomorrow.
Who's coming? Just, I mean, but like the literacy people that came before to give the awards?
Or probably from that department.
Yeah.
And they're willing to see if those things go. Probably a priority for the state.
Oh, good, awesome.
Yes. So we will talk to them tomorrow.
Very cool.
We'll be over at Mason,
Nice. Very good. So we're back in open session. At this point, I would entertain a motion to approve the personnel report.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
First and second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Passes 6-0. Our personnel report is approved.
Mr. Chairman,
Ma'am?
could we just have a minute of budget update so that, we kind of all are on the same page where we are after the holiday?
We could do that if we have a motion and
Okay, I
supermajority.
so move that.
Okay? There's a motion to add a quick budget discussion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have first and second. Any discussion? Okay, ma'am?
I don't think we need that at this point in time because we need to just wait till we hear from the county commissioners.
Okay.
I'm not in favor of adding it at this point because it's 4 o'clock.
Oh, you have information that we don't have.
Huh?
No. Well,
Ms.
you say
Bradford?
we haven't heard, but,
Ms. Bradford? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Walker?
well, I just tend to agree, only because I know there's a county budget meeting tomorrow. I just, I don't want to talk about it too much. I guess I'm concerned about that. But also, we have 2 other things on the agenda. I gotta go.
Okay. All right, we have a first and a second. Ms. Bowie, would you please, again, this would, let me make sure, but I think this would
This is a supermajority.
supermajority, which would be actually 5 out of the 6 of us to vote for that. Ms. Bowie, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bradford?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman, I think it would take 2/3, which is 4 out of 6.
Yeah.
Oh, 2/3, okay, not supermajority. Okay, thank you, sir.
No, it is supermajority, but it's 4 out of 6.
4 out of 6.
When it's 6.
Okay, so 4 out of 6, so it would take 4 of us.
Mr. Chair, can I ask for one point of clarity here?
Yes, please.
Is this being asked to be added right this moment, or is there going to be direction given as far as what the budget update to look like at the discussion?
Mr.
It
Chair?
would be just basically Ms. Sutton and Dr. Powell sharing with us any information that they might have,
Oh, okay.
that kind of thing. Any updates on that? Yes.
We're
Ma'am?
we're spending more time arguing over it than it would take to have said.
Okay. But we have to follow the
Bradford?
Okay, Ms. Bowie, would
Yes.
you please call the roll?
Yes?
Ms. Craybill?
No.
Ms. Barnhart?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
No.
Mr. Wildebohr?
At this point, that doesn't matter, but I'll say yes.
And Ms. Mason?
Yes.
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, that is 4 out of 6, okay. So, Ms. Sutton, would you give us a quick update on?
Where are we going to add it? Are we going to just
We're gonna
skip
add-
other things? Can we add it to the end?
All right, let's see, we could add it, well, let's go ahead and get through
After
what we
committee
have.
reports?
After, and we'll do it right after our committee reports, which is right before adjournment. Okay, so we'll carry on with, do we have a pre-K update? Or do we already have that?
Yeah. So I guess the confusion is, I give a report, but that's usually on agenda review. That's the Head Start Liaison Committee report.
Okay, would you go ahead and do it?
Sure, I was just making
Go
sure
knock it
because
out.
it was a little
But we're
confusing.
out of, point of order, we're a point of order, we're out of order. We need to follow our agenda.
Right, but it's pre-K update, so what, do we
there.
have a pre-K?
I thought we just had that from.
Do we have that
That's what I
before?
was just
Is that what we
saying,
had?
where
I'm confused.
there's a.
We already had the pre-K update, I thought, no.
They were the 2 that were in there.
So we've already done that. Okay, we've done that order. So let's
Yes.
go to.
We took it out of order.
Okay, we're out of order, but because they were here, so we knocked them out. Let's go on to our Battle of the Books.
Mr. Chair, one question.
Yes, ma'am.
When is the committee report supposed to happen? Next week?
No.
So you can do it under committee reports right here.
In a minute.
It's not listed, that's why I'm confused. Just want clarification.
Because it wasn't listed as a committee report.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that's what that was supposed to be, perhaps?
Let's go ahead and just do it under committee reports. We'll just add that in.
Okay.
And I mean, we have committee reports, so. We have
don't
that.
need to vote on
We'll
it,
just-
right?
We'll make, yeah,
Okay.
we'll just put that in. Okay, so Battle of the Book update. Ms. Brinson.
Yes, I've asked Dr. Mary Alice Hudson to come up here and do a presentation, so she will take over.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Okay. All right, good afternoon. I am Mary Alice Hudson. I'm the lead media coordinator for the county. My job is to support our media coordinators as they build strong library media programs in our schools. And one of my responsibilities is the coordination of our New Hanover County Schools Battle of the Books competition. Battle of the Books, which we fondly call Bob, has a long, rich history in New Hanover County Schools that I'm excited to share with you today. Thank you. New Hanover County Schools has been participating in Battle of the Books sponsored by the North Carolina School Library Media Association, also called NCS LMA, for more than 16 years. I ask our librarians, and Bob has actually been part of our school's libraries longer than they have, so I don't know the exact start date. But I do know that our elementary and middle schools have participated for many years. And our high school participation began 3 years ago. That began when a group of students at Ashley High School asked their librarian to help them create a team. And that first year, they didn't have anybody to compete against locally, but they did go to regionals and place third in the region. Then the next year, which was last year, all 4 traditional high schools had teams, and this year we added teams from Isaac Bear and Wilmington Early College High Schools. So our 23-24 battles had 5 high school teams, 8 middle school teams, and 22 elementary school teams. Teams can have up to 12 students, so I would estimate that this year's battle involved about 350 students in grades 4 through 12. Our winning teams traveled to other counties and represented New Hanover County School at the regional battles. Our elementary team, Bradley Creek, won the regional competition for the second time in the last 3 years. In the last 7 years, we've had 3 middle schools win at regionals, one of which was Noble in 2017, went on to place 3rd in the state middle school competition. Our students have experienced a lot of success associated with participation in Bob, but like everything else with Bob, beating the competition isn't what makes you a winner. Students benefit from Battle of Books in many different ways. The reasons students join and the ways they benefit are as numerous as the students themselves. If you'll advance. So I'll start with what is Battle of the Books. Battle of the Books is a voluntary competition that schools and students can choose to join. Teams are often coached by a school librarian, but the head coach can be any certified staff member who is an NCS LMA member. A school can have 1 team consisting of 12 students. Some schools allow all interested students to participate in site-based Bob meetings and activities, but only 12 students can participate on the competition team. School librarians across North Carolina volunteer to represent their region and work with peers across the state to select the book lists, to write questions for the competition, to set the timeline for each year, and to organize the regional and state competitions. The NCS LMA Battle of the Book Manual provides a process for book selection, which instructs the committee to consider student reading levels, student interests, genre, quality, availability, authoritative reviews, awards, and previous book lists to select titles. The reuse of titles helps to reduce the cost of purchasing books for the competition and the time required to write competition questions for each of the books. Everything about Battle of the Books participation is voluntary. Whether or not a school participates is that school and librarian's choice. Whether or not a student participates is that student or family's choice. The book lists are shared a year in advance, so parents and students have time to make decisions about participation. So what happens if a parent or student has concerns about a specific book? Participating students are not required to read every book. That choice is left up to the student and their family. If a parent seeks to challenge a title on the Bob list, NCS LMA has guidelines for individuals to challenge titles. Bob is definitely a competition based on books, but it's also so much more. It's avid readers finding a place they belong and reluctant readers becoming readers. It's generating excitement about reading throughout our schools and county. It's belonging to a team and working together to meet common goals. It's friendships. It's the opportunity for students to visit local college campuses and to travel to other parts of our state to proudly represent New Hanover County schools. So what does Bob mean to our school communities? When parents talk about Bob, you definitely hear their pride in their child's commitment and achievement, but you also hear their appreciation for the academic and social growth their child experiences through participation in Bob. The parent of a current senior shared that her child was never on a sports team, but Bob allowed her to find her people and to compete alongside her peers. Our librarians see as many benefits to Bob as they have students who participate. The list is long and includes so many positive things like sportsmanship and teamwork, kindness, friendship, cooperation, and exposure to new experiences and opportunities. These reflections came from high school students who both also mentioned that Bob helped them move from reading the same books over and over again to trying new genres. One mentioned that he pretty much only read Junie B. Jones until he joined his elementary Battle of the Books team. One librarian told me she has a group of 9 third graders who have been counting the days for a full year to finally be eligible to participate in Bob. The goal of Battle of the Books is to promote literacy and the joy of reading, which it absolutely does. But as you've heard, it does more and it means more to the families and students who participate. Thank you for allowing me to share the many and varied ways Battle of the Books positively impacts New Hanover County School students. Thank you.
Do you have any questions? First off, thank you very much for that. I do remember me asking our librarian at my school when I was principal that, you know, you are going to do this, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you are going to. So, yeah, and we did really, really well over the years. But do we have questions, board members?
I just have a comment. My kids both did Battle of the Books. It's been around for a very long time, and I love the fact that it encourages kids to actually read a physical book. And I got to attend some of it at Ashley. The competition was fun to watch. And actually, I think I was there at the time they had a challenge. They had never had that before, and they won the challenge. That means they were really reading, paying attention. So I thought that was great. I would say how much I love this program and how much it's been a part of this district for such a long time.
Others? Ms. Graybill.
I got a letter from a 4th grader that I would just like to take time to read. Why I liked Bob. I liked Battle of the Books because I got to read new and amazing books. I also liked that I got to meet new people from my grade and other grades. I liked that we got to go up against other schools to show what we learned. I learned that you cannot judge a book by its cover. I just wanted to add that since we didn't have any elementary school testimonials, I wanted to make sure that we had an elementary school testimonial.
Any other questions?
I have a comment. Miss Mary Alice, did we as a district submit any titles to Bob?
So NCS LMA has a link on their website that will allow any individual to submit titles. I don't know if individuals in our county did or not.
So as a district, though, we did not have any submission process. And so are they required, NCS LMA, are they required to follow any of our protocols or guidelines?
So they have their own protocols and guidelines. They don't differ vastly from ours.
I mean, I know we had just gone through the process of changing and updating some of the things of clearly outlining the expectation. I have mixed feelings about this because I absolutely love the fact that there's this competition. And I also have been reading through the Battle of the Books for elementary myself. And I have a soon-to-be 9-year-old daughter who is very excited to be a part. But some of the choices, I question and challenge of why we're putting these in front of our 9-year-olds. One is about a father who's incarcerated for murder, and she finds a letter written by him. One is about standing up to censorship, and it's this moral dilemma of this small child standing up and making choices that benefit them. In the process, this child is encouraged and actually does run away from home because in her home she was not getting what she needed because she has 2 siblings. And I'm confused why that's being celebrated, and at the same time, I love the fact that this competition exists because it is created this opportunity for our small kids. But I'm concerned that an organization that we know once and please correct me if I'm wrong, once the list is submitted, it goes into every single library for school libraries and public libraries around the state, correct?
Once the list is created, it's available.
It's available
To everyone
yes.
around the state,
And
yes.
it should be. If we're creating this competition, it should be absolutely available to our students if they want to participate. Is it correct that our teachers, in order to give these kids these opportunities, they have to pay to be part of this organization? Is that a correct assessment?
Yes, someone has to be a member of NCS LMA.
So I'm having a hard time with those, and at the same time, I respect the fact that professionals can disagree, but I also want to make sure that we are really gathering the spirit of our educators, and I'm concerned that that's not happening, 1, but 2, I'd like to know, do we turn away students from competing in this competition?
So the competition teams can only have 12 students, so if more than that want to participate, they can't take more than 12 to the competition. However, many schools do allow as many students as are interested to participate in the site-based activities that go along with Bob. And the books are available to any student who would like to read them.
Okay.
They're not reserved.
But they just wouldn't be able to participate in the competition?
Only 12 can go to the competition.
And I do remember we had some teams, like my librarian was a big, which I think was great. She was a big proponent of 12, and she moved the kids in and out. And there's other teams that have, I think there's 5 actually on stage. And she had 5, the other teams at times had, so it's all their coaching strategies, but they had 5 and that's all they had. And that's, I guess, up to them. So, any other questions, board members? Ms. Bradford?
Yeah. I read and write for a living. I encourage reading and literacy. And so I'm all for anything that gets a book in a kid's hand. Did you say that any individual can submit titles to this list? Like I could submit one, my neighbor could submit one, or is it only members of the NCS LMA?
I'm not 100% positive in the answer to that. I'm pretty sure that the submission is on the public-facing side of the website. What I was told is that the group of, there are 9 individuals who serve on the committee that evaluates the books. They're from each of the regions in North Carolina, that they divide up the books and they read as many as they can, and they only consider books that someone in the group has read. And then they use the process as outlined by NCS LMA to narrow down the list. They never replace more than half of the books on the list each year, just so that we don't have to buy so many books. That's a funding issue.
And how does one become a member of NCS LMA?
You pay $50.
So I could join?
Yes.
Okay, so anybody off the street could join this organization, start making suggestions on the list of what our kids are going to go to the Battle of Books, and sooner or later they're probably going to hit the jackpot. Just seems like a lack of control there that makes me very concerned from a curriculum standpoint.
The 9 individuals who represent their region are school librarians of the appropriate grade span. So there are 9 elementary school librarians on the elementary group that selects the books and sets the timelines. There are 9 middle school librarians and there are 9 high school librarians. So yes, you could join, but you would not be eligible to represent your district.
Ms. Grego?
Yeah, so I just wanted to make a note that we did have one of our librarians is on that team, Ms. Wilcox, from New Hanover.
We have had librarians from New Hanover County Schools serve to represent our region. It's not just us, it's the whole region. They don't answer to New Hanover County Schools. The whole organization is a volunteer organization, so they have volunteered their time as individuals to represent our region.
Yeah, so this is kind of just making an opinion on that the content that we don't want some of our students being exposed to, that Ms. Barnhart had brought up. And I just started thinking about that because these books are even if we chose not to even allow them in our library, they're in New Hanover County's library because the lists are posted on their website. But I'm thinking back to just more books. Like, let's just take Nancy Drew for an example. You know, Nancy Drew in book 115 smokes a cigarette and without telling her dad. And do we want our kids being exposed to that? The Nancy Drew also likes to sniff out a scoundrel and breaks into rooms by picking locks and sneaking out of the house. So if we're looking at it from that perspective, we don't want our kids exposed to some content, the kids don't have to read that book. I mean, we've already heard that several times, is that everything about this is optional. And, parents can read, and I mean, I read so many Battle of the books over the years because I read them with my kids as an opportunity to just spend time with them and read books. And, you know me, I'm super competitive, and so we were making up questions ourselves, on whatever. So I just think this whole, the conversation that we're even questioning the Battle of the Books is just kind of seems odd that we are, now we're saying we don't even want you to read, books unless I get to approve them. So I'm hoping that's not where we're going with this.
Ms. Walker?
So I'm reading here, student participation is voluntary. Students are not required to read every book. Parents and students have access to the list in advance. To me, this is all voluntary choice, parent participation. I don't see a problem here. If a parent doesn't like a book, they don't have to get their kid to read it. So I don't believe in trying to control what other parents' decisions they make for their kids.
Mr. Chairman, there's a couple of things in our curriculum that I openly had conversations with Dr. Faison about that parents' concerns brought up, and it's our job to make sure that we're providing the best for our students. And I think one in particular, this is Wit and Wisdom in 4th grade, discussion of a suicide and in graphic detail how the kid does that. And I said, why is this something that we're allowing in the content area for our kids? It's a legit question. There was also a 2nd grade issue, and I think the district decided to pull some of that. So having questioning content does not mean that this is a bad conversation to have. It means that we care about our children. And so for me, in this organization, seeing that the only way that our kids can compete is if the teachers pay into this organization, I would like to see that model changed. I was looking at a few different counties. Some of them pulled the requirement to even be in the organization and still did a similar option for their own county. I think that was Henderson County when I was looking this up. The reality is, I think that we should be looking at our professionals for the direction of what we want to see here, and we do lay the guidelines for what our professional and the expectations are. So I would like to see our staff look into other options potentially that does not involve utilizing this organization and continuing having a literacy competition. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, and I think we actually had that on for discussion for next week, so maybe we can carry on from here. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Excuse me, Mr. Waldebor, where on this agenda? It's not on the agenda for next week. That's why I was kind of curious of what we were talking about. This is strictly information only, unless someone's going to try and force add that to the agenda on Tuesday.
I thought it was okay on for next week, but I guess it's not. So I guess we could add it for next month, then, if we so choose. I could swear it was on, but.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add one thing.
Sorry?
There is a detailed process that the committee, the regional representatives do to actually approve a book. Once the book's recommended, it doesn't mean it's automatically going to get on the list. There's actually a very thorough, detailed process that the committee does in order to say yes or no, this book is appropriate for the list. And they make sure that the books are for the appropriate age range.
And can you go through, since, I'm just going to throw my 2 cents in, but can you go through the process? Say there is a parent or a staff member that has an objection to a book. What is the process?
Our process or the recommended process by NCS LMA?
The one through Battle of the Books.
I do have that.
So I have a discussion.
Along with with many other pieces of
Take your
paper.
time, take your time.
Oh, my goodness.
Also, too,
Sorry.
if you notice on some of these lists that there are student choices, that students submit choices of books. And so that was interesting when I looked at the lists that are already out, because a lot of kids are already starting to get their summer books so they can read, but they have student choices and they have questions that students can submit. So, yeah, it's student-centric also.
Yeah. So you ask if a parent objects to a title?
Mhm.
The first step is to follow the district's policies and procedures for reconsideration of materials. So the very first step is the parent would go to the librarian, they would follow our policies, which begin with going to the principal or the librarian of that school.
So that's where it ends, or say?
Oh,
say-
no, if we as a district choose to remove the book, it can be eliminated from our competition, but it won't be, the questions about that book would not be removed from regional or state competition. So we would just remove that book from our competition.
Okay, so our students would be at a disadvantage throughout the rest of the competition?
Yes.
Because we chose to do that. Okay. Yes, ma'am?
But if a student chose to purchase the book or get it from New Hanover Library or read it on their Kindle, then they could still participate in the competition, right?
Well, the student could absolutely participate in the competition no matter what. He asked if a parent chose to challenge a title listed on the book list.
No,
And
that's what I'm saying, is that if a parent chose to challenge it, I guess we get back to the whole stamp thing, that one parent could take it out of every library. But if a student chose to read the book, even though we don't allow it and don't think it's good, they could still read it, whether it's in our library system or not, and then go ahead and compete with their team, right? Because somebody could answer the questions.
Yes, I would assume the child, the child of that parent wouldn't read it, but
Right,
any other
but-
child, I guess, could access it another way.
Right, okay.
All right, any other discussion on this? Okay. If not, we will thank you again. Thank
You're
you very
welcome.
much for
Thank
being
you.
here. Thank you, thank you. We'll carry on to our safety conversation. And I'm going to start because we're Team One. So I had the privilege of sharing some time with Ms. Walker the other day. I've taken notes. She actually took better notes than me because she writes a lot better than I do. But we talked about our area, which was preventative safety. I already talked to Mr. Anderson about some questions we are going to bring forth to him on like safety training, some data on discipline, which I'll get that in the future so we can bring that to the whole board, referrals, et cetera, a lot of mental health. Ms. Walker, I'm going to kind of bounce it over to you for a little bit.
Yeah, so Julie doesn't know this yet, but I'll be sending her some questions because we figured it falls under probably your, it's just general questions about how students get referred to mental health services, just general stuff like that. We came up with probably about 4 or 5 questions just to get some kind of an idea what the process looks like, and maybe even if we can get some historical data on like, has it gotten worse with referrals or not? So I will shoot those emails to you and CC Mr. Wildeboer. That's all.
We also talked about, maybe using the survey.
Yeah.
And just a real quick update on the survey, the survey window is still open.
Until the 31st.
So it's still going on, so we'll get that, be able to glean some really good information about this whole area from that. I'm trying to read my chicken
You're looking at your notes.
But,
chicken scratch.
a lot of things, how many referrals and that kind of thing, but also, the overall feeling from the district.
What's your
on-
safety
on
assignment? Help me. It was just
Preventative
it was
mental health.
Yeah, mental health, preventative things. Also, Mr. Anderson, you had shared at one point, so another question I'm going to ask you, and I'll send it to you, but it's following up, that whole thing you had mentioned about the scan. We hadn't heard any more about that. You had gone to a different county and there was a scanning device that...
Oh, Johnston County, wasn't it?
That's
What is it?
correct. It's a
Okay,
weapons detection system, and we
Yes.
discussed that in the other safety group as well.
Okay, well, good. No, that'll be another question we're going to bring forth. So that was the end kind of our conversation. Yes, ma'am?
Yes, I was wondering, so I'm looking at how you broke it out, and I'm still a little confused. Preventive safety, that sounds good, mental health, that is one of the SHAC goals, so you don't have, I was just wondering if you had anybody from SHAC on there, because that is what, I'm the board liaison for that. When we have reporting methods, I had some questions. Did you guys talk about what reporting methods are we talking about? Like facility safety concerns, like there is a hole in the ground, personnel safety concerns, like, somebody's bothering me, or I feel like I have mold, I'm breathing mold, or Title IX. I mean, did any of those kind of things come up in your conversations?
We focus more on the preventive discussion in student safety, but also the preventative care in mental health.
But that's on the list for what Team 1 is supposed to do. And then entrance scans, really to me, seems more like Team 3, which we did discuss.
Okay.
So I'm just curious on how these got broken out, and are we still in the phase where we can massage which group talks about what?
I think we can. We can always, massage it, as you say. But I think it also is, just at least a good starting point for us. So, and I'd like to hear from, Group 2 now about what they have.
Okay. Team 2 is Hugh McManus and me. Our safety assignment was internal things inside the school's safety. We had 3 things. First
Did
off,
you meet as a group?
Yes, we did. We have cell phone use, social media use in the school and in the classrooms, and that comes under right now, in our mind, the first swipe at bullying. Bullying is a vast topic, and it's not at the top of our list right now because it's just not at the top of our list right now. It is, but it isn't. So anyway, let me just report. We believe restricting cell phones and social media use in the school will also reduce the bullying on a larger safety issue. This is the first way we'd like to address bullying in conjunction with cell phone use and social media. We reached out to Brunswick County Schools for our #1 issue, cell phones and social media usage in the schools. We spoke to Jonathan Pascal, the Assistant Superintendent over Secondary Schools at Brunswick County. I think Mr. McManus may have hired him into the system. I can't remember. There's some nepotism going on in there somewhere. Mr. Pascal's comments included, phones are a distraction for the classroom. We're starting to get feedback. He said they were pretty sure they were looking at doing a pilot at one of their middle schools or their coastal school of choice, which is an achievement academy, like he said, our CTEC school. He said the greatest concern and the feedback they've been getting has been school safety from the parents' point of view of a larger event happening and the children and the parents having access to the child via the cell phone. So Mr. Pascal said every expert that they have consulted says that you want students off their phone in an emergency. It only adds to the fear. So Brunswick, as you may or may not know from the news, they had a presentation last month from the group with this Yonder cell phone bag or pouch. So we were calling them specifically to find out how that had gone and what did it look like, and so on. And there's plenty of news out there, but it is a bag or a pouch. The students are all issued one, just like they would be issued their computers. And there is no mechanism that they have to walk by to scan to lock. He said what the proposal is, the only special hardware is for the unlocking. So there's unlocking stations on the kids' way out of the school. As the students walk in, they put the phone in the pouch as they're walking. It locks. An administrator is standing nearby. Here's the lock. That student moves on. He says it's pretty fast. So he put us in touch with Isaac Castron, the Education Partners. He's the partnership's principal lead. They're out of Washington, D.C. It's a national company with this product that has this Yonder cell phone bag. They have approximately, he said, between 3,000 and 4,000 schools in the country that are using them. In North Carolina, only one school, Cherokee Middle. He said they have signed up Warren County to come online in the fall. The cost is $25.50 per student. The cost includes accessories, support for the rollout, the parent letter, staff presentation, literally all the support packages included in that one price. If the student loses the pouch, they get charged for a replacement fee, just like if they lost or destroyed something else that belonged to the school. He said across the country, 85% of the schools are implementing at the middle and the high school level. He said of those 85% at middle and level, the split's like 50%. It's just not really starting in the elementary schools. Again, the parent pushback is coming from empowerment of, it comes from empowerment of current school policies. This man talked about no researcher is saying that there's a positive effect. This is a negative statement. Nobody's saying there's a positive effect from students having access to phones or social media in the schools. All the feedback is negative. He said the number one school, again, is in a large emergency, can the parents get hold of the child? And so when I asked about that, he said, and I didn't know this, but he said schools have trauma shears and an emergency kit in the classrooms, and those are able, okay, she's nodding, so she knows about it. Those are able to destroy the pouch in an emergency situation so a student can get into it if they're locked in the classroom and they need access to a cell phone. So that was an interesting part. So then what we did is he sent some reports over the holiday that I may or may not have sent to you, two of you, I can't remember, but he sent me some reports, the man from Washington. I did ask, could he come and make a presentation to our board, and he said he would be happy to, and he has time available in June. Our second thing was exterior building doors being propped open with a pencil or a rock or so on. That's our second, as a committee of two, that's our second highest concern right now. And the need for enforcement to have a penalty. And we're looking for ideas, door checks, but we think the best way to get answers for this is principal input for the individual schools. So again, we have three recommendations. And our third thing was attendance-based failures. While we had Brunswick on the phone, we talked to them about what they were doing, and they have just revamped looking at absenteeism, and they've revamped their policy 4400, and they're feeling good about that. So our committee has 3 recommendations for adoption. Number 1, cell phone use and social media use in the school and in the classrooms be restricted. We moved today to contact the equipment partnership lead, the Yonder cell phone bag company, Isaac Castron, Education Partners, Washington, D.C., to schedule a presentation for us during the month of June. His phone number's on here. Number 2, to address the safety concerns of exterior building doors being propped open in our schools, we asked the principals for their input for their individual schools to include an enforcement penalty, students and staff, at their next meeting, whenever that is. And number 3, attendance-based failures, refer to the policy committee, a request for drafting a policy giving detailed expectations on what to expect of parents in terms of absenteeism and getting the kids to school. And a recommendation from a committee does not need a second.
Well, I don't think we're going to be able to add that to our already very full June meeting, but we could definitely contact this gentleman for the July meeting and see what he's got to.
Could we have a presentation at the agenda review in June
Oh,
for
we can do
July?
that. Yeah.
Because I actually checked that date with him and he said it was available.
Okay. Well, very good. I think that's a good idea. Yes.
So I had some questions just listening through. When we're looking here, school-based safety, did you guys take a look at when it says, did you look at the safety committee and the school safety plan that is in the school and is in the school district? Those kind of things are talked about at the safety management team meeting that we all have been invited to. Also wondering, when we're talking about safety plans, since that's in your, we have an EOP for the district, we have EOPs for the schools, so I'm wondering if your recommendations are to just not look at those, and then also like some of the safety plans, that Julie, that you didn't discuss, was like threat assessments that you do, your crisis management team that you have in place for that. So there's a lot going on that we probably need more input from Ms. Varnum on for this school-based safety. So I'm not thinking that we're at any way, shape, or form to have recommendations coming from the first subgroup of meetings, especially if they didn't include a subject matter expert and all committee members subcommittee members might not have been present at the same time. But those are some key things that, according to our list, that we have systems in place. And I would think that we don't want to go off making recommendations until we have looked at what we already have in place.
Well, I know Mr. McManus has brought up the cell phone.
Oh, no, that one's clear. I'm talking about all the other, things in there.
All right, and let's hear from group number 3, which is Ms. Graybill, Mrs. Mason, and Ms. Barnhart.
You want to tag team it?
Sure thing.
All right.
Tag team.
So a bulk of our conversation started off with acknowledging that school zone signage and marking around looks different throughout the county, and so we've discussed how we can do a better job kind of streamlining that process and understanding that we'd have to work with DOT and potentially WNPO and things like that to provide a better provide better consistency. And so Mr. Anderson was going to kind of bring that information together before we meet, because this was just kind of like the initial thoughts in our head committee meeting, and then we're going to come back together maybe in June, whenever you need us to come back together, Mr. Chairman, we'll get back together to do that, to look at that so that we can do a better job advocating for the exterior things, because we know once vehicles or people are entering our school zones, it creates an issue for us, whether we like it or not. And so we acknowledge that. Ms. Mason, if you want to.
Sure. We talked about, there had been a concern for the runoff about elections and polling stations. So we had some discussion about if we need to make adjustments to those agreements, whether they're ideal or not. And Mr. Anderson was very helpful in that conversation. Additionally, we talked about facility upgrades. Talking about the weapons detection at Johnston County, talking about, following the recommendations from True North, things like that.
Can I elaborate with the weapons detections? We talked about from the issues that happened last year at Ashley, how it's really important that we have some outward deterrence. And I know we had dogs and stuff that were coming into the schools, but just really to have something that we can provide our staff and the community, that they know this is an outward deterrent in addition to the other things, because protocol is being followed and we're doing a great job with that, but just something else that we can help support and assist our staff and students. So that was why the weapons detection came up, because having it be mobile, rather than having to funnel kids through one doorway, which has been an issue, we've talked about potentially it would be classroom spot checks, so that students know that this is available, an opportunity for us, that you could have to go through this and you're going to have to shore up whatever that looks like in your backpack. So,
Can I add to that? I was not able to attend the meeting, but I watched it on the recording of the Zoom, and some of the other things that were brought out about, a lot of the things that we're looking at are not in our capital outlay, and that we would have to definitely prioritize that. But that we were working through the True North assessment recommendations to do with that, and we were also looking at, for that open gate, which is the entrance scans. I was saying Team 1 was talking about, to me that should be Team 3, but talking about looking at that AI grant that we have, what that looks like. And some of the other concerns were that about, from Josie and Melissa, that about, our lockdown procedures, about sister schools, and the district safety committee just had a drill, and we talked very specifically about that. So we do have a lot of plans already in place, and so I would just encourage us to make sure that we have our subject matter expert there at the meetings, so that we can expand on what we're doing well, have us understand what we're doing, and then decide if we're doing it well or if we need to do more for that. But a lot of good stuff, came out of that for that. And I had a question, Eddie, when you were talking about, I was talking to my screen when I was trying to answer, ask you a question, but the metal detectors that we have here at board meetings, those are mobile, but those aren't the open gate mobile ones, correct?
Yeah, the wanding.
But sometimes we do have we do have the thing they walk through, the arch that they walk through.
We had that, but it was an older one that
Okay.
was given to us, and we could never get it working.
Okay, okay.
So we went with the wanding.
So it's just they, because sometimes, I mean, I've seen it there, but we just walk through it as pretend like you're getting scanned and then
So
they scan on the site.
when an open gate, it would be, that's a very similar system. There's just 2 posts, and you do have to walk through one at a time, but it's pretty quick.
Yeah, so thank you for having the meeting. I enjoyed watching.
Does anyone else have any questions about any of the, or you guys done first?
If Ms. Mason wants to finish that one other thing.
Go ahead.
So, one thing that was noted was that some C-Tech students, and there may have been some other early college, I believe that Mr. Anderson brought this up, that are transported to the traditional schools to be bused. If they arrive before, during lockdown, they don't know what to do, so they were working on shoring up that procedure.
Does anybody have any other questions about anything? I think it's a good start. A lot more to discuss, obviously. And I think I will go ahead and contact this person so we can hear from what Brunswick County is doing at the end of our in our next agenda meeting, so a month from now. Next, we have Head Start. Head Start. I just updated my thing. It said,
Yeah, this will
Walker's
be
next.
is brief, because I know we got one more item. So I'll basically, it should be linked if it's not. No, I guess it didn't get linked. Typically, the Head Start is linked, but I mean, it's been sent to me. I'm confused because usually it has been at our regular board meetings, but we've moved it to here. That's going to be permanent, right?
I think because this is where community schools typically are now.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody can see it. Because typically it is, it is linked.
I'm sorry, Ms. Walker, but it was shared with me by the Early Childhood Education Office that there was no Head Start report for this meeting.
Okay, well, she sent me one. I guess this is the right one. This is May 2024. That's right, okay. Maybe she just didn't share. She probably just didn't share. And I can forward, and maybe we can just get it put up there. That's all good. Anyway, I'm not going to read the numbers, because I guess usually when they're up there, everyone can read those. But so I'll just read highlights. Well, program update, they're encouraging people to come visit Johnson Pre-K Head Start Center. We would like to welcome any board member to visit the center and complete an assessment walkthrough form. You are not required, but we'd like to see you. Center highlights, we finished our kindergarten transition field trips to College Park, Snipes, and Sunset Park. Spring pictures were taken on April 16th. All returning students completed their educational screenings for 24-25 school year. Students performed their spring, Brooklyn Arts Museum concert. Not Brooklyn Arts, is that right?
Yeah, the Bama.
I just say Bama then. At Snipes Academy for their family and friends on April 26th and May 3rd. Had a total of 270 people come out to see our students. Celebrated Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week, May 6th through 10th. Everyone received multiple gifts from students, staff, and our community partners. In a house field trip, Marine CSI was at Johnson on May 15th and 16th for select classrooms to see. And since Johnson's field day was Friday, May 17th, we will, wow, that's past, there it is, yeah. They hosted, it says they hosted fun stations for classes to rotate through. They had 277 family members attend, with 51 being father figures. So that is the highlights.
There it is.
Oh, hey, there it is. All right, there you go. You didn't have to do that part.
Well, thank you, Ms.
That's
Walker.
it.
Any questions? Questions? And our last bit of item before adjournment is a quick budget update. So, Sutton.
So after our board budget work session on May 14th, on the 15th, I submitted our request memo to the board, to the county. And that request was the $10.1 million that we talked about in the work session. The memo that was provided to the county with the request was included in the board memo email on May 18th. And I'll be glad to ask any other questions. I haven't heard anything. That's all the information I have at this point.
Any questions? None? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you, board members and central office staff. We are adjourned.